All right, we're live. I'm really excited today. I have an awesome guest. This was a little bit of a surprise and got tossed together quickly, but I'm super excited about this guest because it's not every day we get a real living, breathing congressional candidate from the Florida 13th District. I'm really excited. We got the one and only Anna Paulina. What's going on?
Thank you so much for having me on, John.
No, this is fun. We had a bunch of mutual friends, so this got thrown together, and I'm happy that it did. I really am, because I want to hear from you what's going on and what prompted this run.
So basically, and I'm glad we have some time here because it might take a minute to work through this, but about a year and a half ago, I made the decision to not go to medical school and to take a position doing national Hispanic outreach. And in a nutshell, really 2 months into that job, I realized, I was like, look, whether it's MSNBC, CNN, ABC, Fox News, what all of these networks talk about is what's happening in DC. And so if I wanted to change the national discussion, I had to do it at that level. And I realized that, early on with various organizations I was working with, one being an anti-trafficking organization that works basically, against trafficking at the U.S. Mexico border of children. I realized that everything that I was seeing on the network television, everything that I was hearing from politicians, leftist politicians, was basically propaganda against the Hispanic American demographics to get them to vote a certain way in 2020. And, on my own research, you look at the demographics and how it's changing. And really in 2020, the largest voting minority in the country is Hispanic Americans, specifically those of Mexican descent. So when you saw what was happening at the border saying, it's quote unquote racist to enforce family separation, it's quote unquote racist to enforce legal border policies, I looked at that like a joke. I am the granddaughter of legal immigrants on both sides of my family. I have family from either Mexico or from Mexican descent. And what's ironic about all of that is that, they don't talk about the fact that 1 in 3 children that are brought here are not biologically related to those claiming to be their family members. They don't talk about the fact that there's literally millions of people waiting to come here legally and that they can't get in within a certain amount of time because our immigration system is so bogged down by really people rushing the border. And so, me following what President Trump was doing, me following really the propaganda aspect of what the media was doing, I said, I'm going to start using my voice. So I took this position with this organization, and then 2 months into that job, I realized that I would be running for Congress because, one, I'm passionate about it, but two, I really believe that this is about changing the discussion, really helping to save the country. You have women, and it's probably like the most long-winded response you're going to get, but there's so many women that have been propped up by organizations like Justice for Democrats that are basically doing what they can to promote a socialist agenda. And I happened to be in D.C. this past weekend, and, I went to AOC's office, and you just look outside and you see these signs that say abolish ICE and the prison camps. I mean, people, younger generation people, just totally brainwashed as to what the reality is of all of this. So I made the decision then. It wasn't easy. You're taking on a lot when you announce a congressional run, and it's hard work, but I believe in saving this country, and I'm a veteran. And so this is deeply personal for me, and it's, me continuing service to the country. So in a nutshell, that's why I'm running.
Yeah, no, honestly, it's a great answer. There's not, I think your reasons are spot on. I think you have a great platform. When you make that decision to run, it's something that obviously you have to pull in your whole family, right? So what was going through your husband's head during this?
So I called him and I was like, hey, babe. And he was driving home from work. And I said, I'm running for Congress. And he's like, well, he's like, how do you do that? I was like, I don't know. We're just going to figure it out. But, he's been very supportive of it. And, I didn't come from, I'd say like a normal upbringing background. So for me, my family consists of really my husband, myself, and then my mom and my brother, and my sister. And so, in all of that, my mom, my brother and sister, they love me, they support me. But actually, my mom herself up until recently was considered what I would consider very liberal. And so, even when she first found out that I was supportive of President Trump's policies or that, I was actually a Republican, I remember times that we would kind of get into debates on the phone. She'd be like, I can't talk to you about this, like you're wrong. And then finally it was actually her coming to some of the events that I'd be speaking at that were conservative conferences that she was like, I was totally wrong. And she's like, I'm a little bit embarrassed to admit this, but I really thought that, Republicans were racist. And it was coming to events where she saw that it wasn't just, white older males, but like literally young Black Americans, men and women, young Hispanic Americans, men and women. And it just goes to show that really how the Democrat Party has framed minorities and really used that to think that, it's wrong if you have a conservative mindset. It took her seeing kind of what I was going through, seeing that me even just being affiliated with this organization, people were calling this organization, it was Turning Point USA at the time. They were calling Turning Point USA an alt-right organization and saying that it was promoting white supremacist ideology. And here you have my mom, who's definitely not white, really being like, this is absolutely absurd. My daughter's obviously not a white supremacist. I've been to these events. And she was a liberal at the time, right? And so I think it was her seeing what I was going through, seeing what I was really exposed to that was like, okay, it actually somewhat changed her ideas and really showed her that, the media and what they're doing, even if you don't agree with them, is just wrong. And so it actually caused her to re-register as an independent, which I was fairly proud of because I never thought that my family would do that. And it really opened up my brother and sister's mind to really the fact that, sometimes if you're not having these conversations and you're just trusting in what you see and hear on the news and television, you're not going to get the full truth. So, my husband's been very supportive of it. And I can say that, he's still in the military. So for us, we will always have a connection and great love and respect for the military. But, it's just like any position, you're putting yourself out there. And so you're going to get hit from all sides. And I don't even really pay much attention to it. I just carry on with my message and realize that that's kind of part of the job. And I'm fighting for something bigger here. You
have a legitimate chance in this district. It's been primarily Republican. It's flip-flopped a little recently.
Yes.
The mean income's right around 50 grand. So you have a very working class community. I'm very familiar with that community. I've spent a lot of time in that county. Do you feel like you have this legitimate shot? And have you had that aha moment where I could really win this thing yet?
Yeah. And actually I've had that since I announced, and I say that because, the one thing is that we have, it is, first of all, this district should be Republican. And actually, Pinellas County as a whole went to President Trump. The entire county went to President Trump, but, my district in particular, Trump only lost it by a few points. And so I think that with the right candidate, i.e. me, someone that can connect and talk from personal experience to a lot of people that I feel like have been totally secluded from, wanting to connect with, people that people that they're voting for. And then plus my polling is incredible. And I can say that, we have done polling, and as long as I get my name out in the district, I will be carrying through the primary and then, going up against Charlie. And when it comes down to Charlie Crist, who is currently holding the position as a Democrat. And so for those who don't know, Charlie Crist is a former governor of Florida. Mm-hmm. He was a Republican at one point, then he switched to independent. Now he's a Democrat. But what's interesting about this is he also happens to be the fundraiser of the DCCC, which means he is bringing in money to the Democrat Congressional Committee to basically keep seats like Ilhan Omar's and Nancy Pelosi and all these corrupt politicos that have been in office really for longer than I've been alive, aside from Ilhan. So, yeah, I definitely had that. And, it's a great responsibility, and it's something that I'm continuing to factor in everything that I do. Because obviously, running for office, you're representing everyone in your district, even the people that might not necessarily agree with you at all times. But I do use my platform, to inform people up to what's happening politically across the nation. And I'm always willing to have those discussions, even if people don't really agree with me. So that's one thing that I think is going to work in my favor, especially when it comes up to taking out Charlie in November of this year.
Yeah, it looks like in the primary you'll be basically up against two other females for the most part, from what I see. And
it's actually just between me and one other person. But yeah, and I think that it's definitely like the one thing about politics is you can't buy personality. And I think that that's like the case with Bloomberg, right? Like, Bloomberg has all this money, but he can't buy his personality, and Trump is just smoking him left and right. And frankly, I'm in a similar circumstance, and it's great because I'm totally going to enjoy winning.
Yeah. And, I think for you, it's going to be about, that exact that exact platform. You better now than you were 4 years ago, and exploring the whole idea of continuing to drain the swamp. Like, do you want to still see Nancy Pelosi in the big seat or not?
Yeah. Do you want to continue, having people that have been basically part of the problem for years, or are you willing to vote for someone who has literally proven? Anyone who looks at my platform and what I've been doing, even just tracking over the last year and a half, I mean, whether it's me championing issues like cleaning up the oceans or me championing issues for the Second Amendment nationally, I mean, when I get behind something, I make it happen. And I think that that's for really a lot of people, why they respect me so much and why they're championing my campaign. I mean, I have people, and this is what's amazing, people that come to my events, and I'm not even, advertising, flyering. I'm doing this all on all social media. My first event that I had in district, I had over or close to 100 people show up. And then the next event I had, and that was on a Thursday at 5 p.m. So this is people coming there after work, and then people said, we want to have another one. We were a little bit older though. We don't drive at night, and it was a little bit far. So we had one in the northwestern part of the district. And it was at 8 a.m. on a Monday morning, and we got 40 brand new faces. And so the response and turnout that we're getting is, I think, for a lot of people, and from what my campaign manager and consultant have said, I mean, it's very hard to do that. And the fact that I'm able to pull in that many people and there's so much enthusiasm about it, and that's basically on grassroots campaigning, I mean, that's very, very impressive. And so what we're working on right now is we're working on fundraising. And then we're going to basically rely in the realm that I prosper in, which is basically that activism. And that is my ace in the hole. So if you need to remove someone like Charlie, you have to have that. There's just no way around that, because Charlie Crist is one of the best politicians probably that the U.S. has ever seen, right? Like, he's literally convinced people, I'm not a Republican anymore. Now I'm an independent. Now I'm not an independent anymore. Now I'm a Democrat. And so he's going to be a hard fish to pick out, but it can be done. It just has to take the right person. And so that's something that we're focusing on.
And I love the built not bought moniker. I love that you're using that as a slogan. And I love the idea of it being in many ways a you versus Nancy race, and making it more about let's get to work, right? Like, let's get to work. And that, to me, if I was to put something right under built not bought, I'd be like, it's time for Congress to get to work. And that's what people need to understand is we've been fighting, whether it's impeachment and all this other stuff. Do you want to continue to have these battles, which I believe it's something, and I believe in your district, it's going to be a huge bellwether. I would believe it's under 50% want to see that continue to happen. And you just have to capture that vote. Do you want to have more of the same of Nancy ripping up papers and everything else, or do we want to move on from this?
I mean, it's the point of, like, I mean, if you look at even what happened with that, I mean, the woman planned this, which is like pretty pathetic in herself, right? She's like, I'm going to plan. It's like a pre-ripped paper, a statement against the president. It's just like, grow up. I mean, how old do you have to be? This is tiring. Half these people that claim that they know what public service is have never done anything more than serve themselves. So for me, it's like, you look at that from a military perspective, from even when I talk to law enforcement members, from people that have actually gone out into the community and done more than just read what they believe in books, right? It's personal. And so, we're tired of it. And I can say that what I would like to see change in Congress, especially, is like, enough of this political correctness nonsense. Half the reason why we have the problems that we do is because people are so afraid of saying the right thing. They're so afraid that they might have Joe Schmo from, Milwaukee commenting on their Twitter, not agreeing with them. You have to have those tough conversations, and I'm not afraid of doing that. And I think that that's why I've actually gone such a good response nationally to my campaign. And then also, in addition to that, people in the district know that, I might not be perfect, but when I believe in something, and when I say I believe in something, I'm sure as heck going to be backing it up. And so, actually, if I can for a second here, and I'll probably plug it throughout our conversation, but if you guys want to see exactly where I stand on things, which is basically pro-life, pro-God, pro-gun, and anti-socialist, you can always go to my website, which is votesonnapaulina.com, and see all what I'm about. If you want to even donate, you can donate there as well.
Now, one of the big things Charlie Chris has flip flopped on was the assault weapons ban and high capacity magazines and things like that, and that's something that I know in Florida is a huge boondoggle. He receives an F rating from the NRA, which is the lowest,
and he used to have an A+ rating, but to my knowledge, that's how bad it's been.
And it's something that's been insanely controversial. It's one of those things that I think he's insanely beatable. He is
insanely beatable. And frankly, going back to that, people say, oh, well, we should have guns, but not certain guns, or, oh, we only need to have firearms for hunting and self-defense. Actually wrong. The Second Amendment was put in place to empower people over government, which right now there's no way in heck I would ever even consider promoting that message, because you literally have people running for president on a socialist platform, idolizing, people from Cuba. Like, the fact is that they are literally openly embracing some of the worst people in the world. Castro. I mean, how many people did Castro kill? And they say, oh, well, he had, they had a great literacy program. That's ridiculous. This guy has secret police going around rounding up people. In fact, to my knowledge, one of the vice chairman of the Republican National Hispanic Assembly and Marco Rubio, their grandfather was a political prisoner from Cuba. So it's the fact that these people are embracing that. I mean, that's scary to me, and that's what the Second Amendment is for. We're a constitutional republic. Socialism has no place in our government. And I'm frankly tired of people tiptoeing around this issue. And so I think when it came time for actually Matt Gaetz to meet with me and he endorsed me, I mean, he's one of the strongest voices we have right now, really championing the Constitution and protecting it. And for me, I mean, not only is it an honor to have him get behind me, but it also proves that, like, him and I politically align down to the T. And, we're not afraid of standing up. And I think that, someone like Matt Gaetz, I consider him a patriot. And I think that that's what this is coming down to. Are you going to stand up for your country? Or are you going to sell it down the road? There's not, just because someone might have an R next to their name doesn't necessarily mean they're fighting for the invested interest of the American people. And we saw that happen with Mitt Romney even. I mean, that guy is just, God, Mitt Romney. But, that's something that we're basically showing, especially in district, is that I'm not going to flip-flop. I believe in what I say, and I'm here to protect the Constitution and represent the district. So,
and I think he made a terrible bet saying, in 2014 that the extreme right hijacked the GOP, and that's why I flipped. I think that was an insanely poor, gamble. And I don't think that's
Mitt Romney?
No, Chris. And I think that was an insanely poor gamble, because if anything, we've seen the extreme left hijack the Democratic Party.
Well, and to my knowledge, I had actually heard that he had his people reach out to the GOP here in Florida to talk about possibly coming back as a Republican. So, it's been very interesting. The man, I don't think he cares about Republican values. I don't think he cares about Democrat values. I think he cares about staying in office. And if it's up to him, it doesn't matter if he loses this race or not. He's going to die in office, whether it's, at this level or, the head of the garbage can community. Yeah, it doesn't matter to him. He wants that, he wants that title. And frankly, it's frustrating because you have all of South St. Pete that's really been living in poverty, really affected by opioids. And even that, during his time as governor, he basically chose to not really deal with that. And, you have people who are really having their lives affected in a negative way. The Democrats have done nothing for minorities, whether they're Black or Hispanic. And you have someone that claims to understand, right? He'll take pictures all day long with Hispanic women and children or Black women and children, but he's done nothing for the community. And so it's frustrating to see that, because he has a position to where he really could help, and he chose not to do anything.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And it's going to be interesting to see as the campaign progresses what type of messaging he puts out there, because he seems to have been pretty quiet lately. And why do you think that is?
Oh, he knows. I mean, first of all, I've been leveraging, my platform against him pretty heavily, calling him out on stuff. And he knows that there's nothing he can say right now. He was one of the first congressmen actually to champion the impeachment of President Trump. And he already knows that that's going to come back to bite him heavily, especially when I'm on the debate stage with him. But he also knows that there's nothing he can really do right now. So he's really trying to, I think, go back and say, okay, I'm going to soften my message, go very, very moderate. And I also noticed that he hasn't really endorsed anyone for the presidential either. So he's definitely knowing, and I think he sees that there's blood in the water, and I think that he's really afraid that he's going to be losing this seat. I mean, he's definitely not wanting me to make it through the primary, I'll tell you that much, because I'm the only candidate to date that hasn't been verified by Twitter. I have every single card I need to run against him in regards to really taking him out of office and really calling out his nonsense. I mean, none of the identity politics, typical arguments that he has from the DNC can work against me. And so there's definitely going to be, it's going to be a tough fight, but it can be done for sure.
Absolutely. Now, as you gear up for this, you mentioned being pro-life, and we know you're pro-2A. What's the number one message you have to the median income, $50,000 to probably $60,000 in Pinellas County, of how you can help them? Obviously, we have a strong economy, and that county is a county that is near and dear to my heart. I have a ton of friends in that Clearwater and Tampa area. What's the number one message you want to get to them?
Well, the first one is unlike Charlie Crist, I'm not, endorsing socialism. And that's something that, we know that everything sounds great for free, right? Like if you go out there and promise people free healthcare, free education, well, guess what that free results in is an increase in taxes. So I'm not for increase in taxes. I'm not for socialism. And then also too, locally, we actually have people that are trying to push an environmental tax. And I'm not for that either. I think that that's one of the worst things that you can do. Especially for those small business owners. And I can say that, I'm not particularly well-to-do myself. So can I definitely resonate with these people? Absolutely. And guess what? The last thing I want to do is say, hey, I'm running for Congress and, environmental taxes are the way to help the environment. Wrong. It's like the complete opposite. If you really want to incentivize people to help the environment and to, for the small businesses to really help, incentivize them to do something, you give them a tax cut, and that actually helps the local community, keeps people employed, keeps those businesses open. And so, it's interesting because I say through and through, I'm a traditional Republican. I don't want to increase in taxes at all. And really when it comes to, going out there and representing this district, but on a national platform as well, I mean, we have to, if you like what you have, if you like, being left alone, you want government out of your life, then you absolutely need someone who's willing to say that they want that in DC as well and not be bought by the time they get in.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely correct. I mean, he's going to come with a moderate message, and you're in, almost it's almost a toss up, and it's going to come down to the messaging and everything else. And that's where I think it starts to become a little bit national. That's my opinion. It starts to become, who do you want to see in the big seat? And that's why I come back to that. And I think that's going to be something that's going to resonate with these folks. You have an interesting demographic there. It's a bellwether district, and I think as you come out with that grassroots approach, it's gonna be something that's gonna resonate really well with a lot of those folks in that area. So I think you have your work cut out for you, but if you get your messaging right, I think you're gonna absolutely crush it. And I think it's just gonna be a matter of now getting the airtime and getting the dollars together to create a formidable run. And do you think you'll be able to do that? You think you'll be able to do that?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, you should see at the start of this next quarter, we're going to be on the radar list for the NRCC. We actually locked down 2 rather large fundraisers for my campaign. And to date, I've raised, money from basically doing shows like this, that national grassroots money, which is helping me really compete against some of the corporate interest money that we see a lot in DC. And so for me, I wouldn't be able to do what I'm doing right now if it weren't for people donating. So I totally still need people to, donate to my campaign, whether it's $5, $10, $100, $1,000. I mean, that's kind of where I think as conservatives and Republicans need to say, okay, look, I need to really put my money where my mouth is. If I don't like what's happening, get involved with races, get involved, with someone. If you're in California and you can't donate to someone that, realize might have a shot in Texas or in Florida, for example, my campaign. But, it's making a difference. And so I can say that actually, nationally speaking, I'm one of the few Republican candidates that's had the platform like this going into office to where I can actually fundraise nationally because of it. And so it's been both a blessing and a curse because obviously you can imagine I take a lot of heat. But I also, too, have amazing people supporting me, not just in my own district, but across the country. So I'm really happy about that. And definitely, you're going to see, as we get closer to the primaries, this is going to be national news, and it's kind of scary a little bit. You're putting yourself really out there, and you're representing and you're fighting and you're championing these beliefs. So the objective is to just keep going through it and pray and hope for the best.
Do you have any town halls scheduled?
So we actually have a debate, which I'm very excited about. And the debate is something that I've been waiting for because, everyone has forms, but, let's be realistic. There's not going to be forms in DC and it's not always polite. And so the one thing that I tend to flourish on is really debating. And so I'm very excited about that. That'll be a primary debate.
Yeah. And when's the first debate scheduled?
April. It'll be April 18th, I believe.
Okay. It's going to be all candidates on, or are they going to break it up? How are they going to do it?
Yes, it'll be all candidates on, and that's where it's like, let's show people what you're made of, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I think it's going to be something that is going to be really important that you come out, strong, and I know that you will. I think, I just see it as just more of a national thing as well. I mean, I just think it's going to be all about, do you want more of the same? And I think it's draining the swamp 2.0. I mean, Charlie Crist has a long history of being a political insider and a long history of flip-flopping, which is something I know the Trumps can't stand. They want loyal people. They want people committed to the party.
And people that are actually believing in the Constitution. Like I say, it's so frustrating. You have people that say that they're Republican and they're like, "Oh, I'm for an assault rifle ban. Get out of here!"
Right.
Like you're a Republican. Look at the root of that word, republic. Like, stop, bending the knee to other people's agendas here. Like, stand up for what you believe in. It's so frustrating. And sometimes this is from men and women. It's like, come on, guys. Like, this is a time where we need to have backbones. We need more people with backbones elected to office.
Now, there's about 429 square miles in that district. You plan on covering them all, correct?
Absolutely. We're going to be, it's a lot, but I have the stamina for it. And the one great thing about the campaign is we've actually been getting a lot of people wanting to volunteer who are in college and seniors in high school. And I can tell you that although I'm 30, and my metabolism has dropped down a little bit, you give 18, 19 or 20-year-old a Red Bull and they're good for 3 days. So we're excited about that.
Yeah, and there's so many great towns, right? You have St. Pete, you have Clearwater. There's so many great areas to cover.
Gulfport, Largo, Seminole.
Who doesn't want to hit those areas? And I know you're going to have a huge ground and pound strategy to get into these areas. And I think that they're going to be great conversations. I think if you hit the coffee shops, you hit the ground running, you start to listen to these people, I think it's a message that will resonate. I have a tremendous amount of friends in the St. Pete area. I think that there's so much ground to cover that, why not you, right?
Yeah, it's gonna be great. And you know what? I come from the activist world, and I definitely, as one of the most prominent conservative Hispanic leaders in the country, I love conversating with people, and so I'm excited about it.
What's the first thing you want to do if you make it to Congress?
First thing I want to do is I want to champion a national reciprocity concealed carry act. I think that needs to be done. I cannot tell you how many times, I've been in other states. I actually have a concealed carry in 3 states, and it's ridiculous that you have to go through the process already doing one in another state, especially as a veteran. It's like, why do I have to reapply for this? I'm already approved in Florida. But that needs to be done, I think, nationally. I mean, we basically can drive cars in every other state. Why can't you have a concealed carry too? So I would love to do that. I also would love to tackle really immigration. I think that needs to be done and solidified. And, President Trump has been completely just torn up in the media, called a racist, which is a total lie. But really, he's done more for the Hispanic American community than I think any other president has. And frankly, illegal immigration needs to just stop altogether. And so I'd love to really help fight that message. And then also, too, I am big on pro-life. And so I would love to kind of do something nationally, or federally at least, in regards to protecting the right to life, especially when you have a baby that's, basically on its way of being born, and then you have people trying to kill the baby like they do in New York. So that's something, the Born Alive bill. I mean, we need people, especially women, to champion that. And then unfortunately, we only have 11 congresswomen that are Republicans in office because 2 are stepping down. And so hopefully we can get those numbers back up in the House. But I feel like women, especially in regards to abortion, need to champion that issue. So
How do you combat, you touched on it earlier, the huge opioid problem that's plagued obviously all of Florida, but particularly in your county? Florida has that reputation of just still battling to this day, a huge addiction problem. What's one of the programs or one of the things you have your eye on really fixing or implementing or remedying to take this to the next level?
Well, first of all, you look at really where a lot of people are getting these legal drugs, and that's from people prescribing them. So obviously making sure that doctors aren't over prescribing or practicing polypharmacy, which is, prescribing too many medications. And then also are these doctors being incentivized for prescribing these medications through pharmaceuticals? So that's a big deal too. But then also to enforcing the laws. And I think that especially in our area, when you're not enabling law enforcement to do their job, when you're not allowing these people to say, okay, look, you guys can enforce arrest, you guys can, uphold the law. I think that that's part of the problem, because then you get people that are basically through policy, really not maybe given a slap on the wrist. But in my opinion, if you're dealing especially something like fentanyl, heroin, I mean, you're destroying people's lives and you're hooking people, you're destroying families. And that's something that's also personal to me as to what's happened with my own family. And so I don't believe that it should just be a slap on the wrist. I think that those sentences should be taken more seriously. And I think that needs to happen nationally. You have a lot of people that, can get arrested. And like in New York, for example, there was a guy that was arrested, I think it was 153 times, and he hasn't even been enforced on bail because of some of the laws that New York has pushed. So this is, whether it's Florida, whether it's Georgia, whether it's Alabama, whether it's Louisiana, I mean, it kind of is all encompassing, because you have drugs coming in from other states, and you have Florida that's also being used as a state to funnel drugs to the rest of the country. So I think that also, somewhat ties to the immigration issue. It ties to the pharmaceutical industry. It ties to, a lot of problems that we really haven't seen a lot of movement on. And I think that the administration, in particular with Pam Bondi, has really championed those issues for Florida, and I hope to assist with Governor DeSantis on that as well.
I'm at the school of thought with Florida, specifically as it pertains to some of these counties, because I have a lot of friends in law enforcement down there in the Miami area and through Pinellas. I take the Rudy Giuliani approach, the way he approached even homelessness, in New York. Listen, you wanna be prescribing drugs frivolously, we're gonna come after you. Period.
Yeah.
Period. Yep. Take the hard line on it. You want to be a doctor that loosely wants to use his prescription pad and wants to abuse that power, or you want to be one of these, and I use air quotes around it, clinics that prescribes this stuff, we're going to come after you, and we're going to come after you now. I take the hard stance on that, if that's the approach you want to take, because nobody ever sat back as a congressional candidate and said, I'm really going to go after the doctor vote.
And the thing is too, is you have to remember that even in Congress that, obviously not all doctors are bad. Obviously not all pharmacists are bad. Obviously not all nurses are bad, but there are those bad players. And the thing is that, when you are in medicine and you take an oath to not hurt anyone, and how could you say that you're upholding your oath to have your license if you're over prescribing and people are literally going to you to get these massive orders of, opioids, and then they're themselves turning around and selling them? That's not what it's supposed to be about. Granted, there are people that are in severe pain and whatnot, but you really have to be careful, especially with something like that. A lot of people that I even went to high school with, were popping pills, and they would do Xanax, whatever it might be. And so that's something that it doesn't matter if you're rich or poor, Black, white, or Hispanic, or Asian. It's a problem. And even Native American, it's definitely something that transcends, both financial and race. So that's definitely something that I want to get behind and help solve. And I know what it's like to talk about that. I've lived it with my family, and I'm passionate about it. So,
how do you plan on bringing more business to Pinellas County? Because that's a county that I think would be beautiful to work in, and I think it's a county that would be beautiful to bring businesses to. And the economic development of the area is something that I know is extremely important, and I know Krista's made a lot of promises on. Is that something you plan on tackling and coming after?
Well, yeah, right now we actually, we have great business, especially in downtown St. Pete. It's such a beautiful area, and you are right. We have development a lot, but also too, right now, a lot of our economy is based on tourism, and that has to do with ocean health. And unfortunately, because of Chris, when you have metric tons and millions of gallons of untreated sewage dumping into the bay, which carries over into our oceans. I mean, people don't want to go swim. I know a lot of locals that were just like, I didn't want to go swimming last year because there's flesh-eating staff that was found in the bay because of the sewage issue. And so that's definitely something that ties not only to business, obviously, because tourism funds business, and then local economy, but the environment, that we got to get that cleaned up. We got to get that under control. And so that, in addition with championing, tax cuts for these businesses instead of environmental taxes to, bring in these environmental standards, that's definitely a way that I plan on helping that. And frankly, I can't say it enough. For the life of me, I'm a firm believer in some of the writings of Thomas Sowell, who was an amazing economist. And, one of the things that he brings up is that when you increase taxes on businesses, wherever it's at, it's going to cause them to lay off people. It's going to cause those businesses to shut down because then they're worried about the overhead. And it's eventually going to tank the area locally. So is that something we want to do? Absolutely not. So I'm a firm believer in that.
Have you talked to Valentine Thomas at all? I believe she lives in that district.
I have not. She's
a spearfisher. She was an attorney. She's a conservationist. And I know that's a topic. She's been on the show. It's near and dear to her heart. She's done my show. She's done Rogan. She's done quite a few shows. Being a
awesome.
Yeah, being a conservationist, that's something. I think you two should sit down. I think there's something there because it seems.
I would love to. Yeah. I actually met with Moat Marine recently, and I just, it's something that I feel like even too Republicans and conservatives get this bad image that we don't care about the environment, and that's such just false advertisement. There's so many people, especially being a Floridian, you live here because you love the ocean, you love being outdoors. It's like, obviously we don't want to destroy the oceans. And so for me, I consider myself, someone that is a champion of those causes. Obviously I'm not, for carbon tax, but, we can be responsible about the environment. And I really do. I can't praise DeSantis enough on this. He's been doing an incredible job. And ironically enough, DeSantis works with an organization called Forest Blue that happens to be actually connected to my husband because he's one of their divers, and it's basically an environmental nonprofit that does coral reef restoration all up and down the coast of Florida and hires, combat wounded veterans to do it. And so I've actually been fortunate enough. A couple of years ago, I went down with the dive team and saw how they kind of repair the coral reefs, and it's something that I do anticipate that I'll still be fighting for even when I get into Congress. And it's one of those things too that so many people, they can rally behind that. Who doesn't want to swim in clean oceans? Who doesn't want clean water? Who doesn't want to, help sea turtles and dolphins? And someone might laugh listening at that, but, you need to find things that unify the country, because the Democrat Party has just really destroyed a lot of the personal connections that we've all had with one another. So we need to change that.
No, absolutely. I'm catching everything you're throwing down, and I think you're absolutely right. I think that there's a lot more to this, but I think you and Valentine would have a lot to talk about. Particularly, it's refreshing, honestly, to hear your stance on the environment and the things that you want to do, particularly in the Gulf and in that area, because I think it's something that's tremendously overlooked.
Absolutely. And, going along with that, I think that it will help kind of unify people nationally. So that's been something that I've been wanting to do, and I anticipate on doing. And for those people who kind of want to find more about my stance, you can find me on any platform, whether it's Parler, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, at Real Onnit Paulina. And that's kind of where I put my political, you guys can see what I'm doing with the campaign, but also my politics. And I love what I do. I love kind of helping people to understand really what works and what doesn't. At the end of the day, I'm a firm believer that, we're all children of God, we're all connected, and there's no reason to be rude about it. And I'm here to kind of help facilitate. So.
Yeah, and I think you're going to do tremendous things. I think you're going to crush it. I love the messaging.
Thank you.
I think I'm really liking what I'm hearing. I think it's about going after that establishment, and I see Charlie Crist is just a merc, as a guy who's bouncing around just being a merc. And if it's good for him, he'll go Republican. If it's good for him, he'll go Democrat. He's going to do what's ultimately good for him and going to keep him in office and keep him elected. And I think that's just something you need to go after. And I think it's something that needs to be pointed out and brought light to.
Well, and I'm hoping to do that. And, there's a lot of people, even Democrats, that have come up and said, I'm changing my party affiliation so I can vote for you in the primary. And I want you to know that I like your message, and that right now I feel like the Democrat Party isn't what it was even 10 years ago. And, I understand and I respect what you're doing. And so I'll be voting for you. And that's, when you hear that messaging from even just like 20 people, you're making a difference and you're doing it the right way. And so if I can get Democrats to change to Republicans and Republicans embrace me, then I think I'm doing pretty good.
Yeah. And, I don't want to stem into too much nationally, but I want to ask you, and I understand your stance on immigration. How do you feel about being a veteran, troops coming out of Afghanistan? How does that make you feel?
I'm actually really excited about that. I can say that when I first came in, a lot of my friends, went back and forth. I actually lost several friends, and my husband was shot in Afghanistan. It's personal for me, but I realized, when it was time for us to leave was when I had my little next door neighbor who I knew him from the time he was 7 years old. When he turned 18, he came over to our house and he actually asked to talk with Andy and I because he knew that we were in the military. And he goes, "Hey, I just want to let you know I enlisted in the Army." And then about a year after he had enlisted, he deployed. And so when you have kids that you watch grow up and now are going to fight a war that's been going on since, I was basically maybe 11 years old, it's time that we go. And frankly, it didn't get a lot of coverage, but the Taliban agreed to agreement with the United States for peace. And, right now that almost got zero coverage. And it's time that we bring our troops home. There's no reason that we need to be tackling that when you have people that are trying to tackle and really disarm our own Americans here. And we have a lot of problems at home. So, I'll be the first and foremost to say, I support a strong military. I think part of the reason why we have the position that we do nationally is because we have such a strong defense system. But I will also be the first to tell you that I have directly seen the results of war and what it does to family, what it does to the service members, and what it's really done to my community. And at a certain point, we have to stop and say, okay, you know what, our time is done there. We have issues we need to focus on here. And, I would be the first person to say, support a strong military, but the last person to say that in any circumstance I would openly advocate for war unless it was absolutely necessary.
Yeah. It's a necessary. We're at that point. I mean, it's gone on almost longer than any other war we've ever fought, and it's bypassed career, and I think it's becoming the new forgotten war in so many ways.
Yep.
And they got to bring the guys and gals home. I think it's just time. But I appreciate you taking the time to share all this stuff and give us, huge insight into your campaign, your platform, everything you have going on. I want you to take a minute and plug everything and what you have coming up and what fundraisers, and give all the listeners, a big insight into where they can find you and where they can participate.
Absolutely. So I will actually be having Blexit come out. This is separately for South St. Pete in around May time period. So we're really excited about that in Tampa as well. But you can find more information about what my campaign is doing and then donate to me directly at www.voteonnapaulina, and that's Onna with two N's, Paulina.com. So voteonnapaulina.com. You can donate directly there, and then you can find out what I'm up to on all of my social media platforms, whether it's Parler, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, or even TikTok at Real Onna Paulina. And then, just to remember, if you want to tell your friends about me, I'm pro-life, pro-God, pro-gun, and anti-socialist. But now I'm having to add anti-communist because we know Bernie Sanders is a communist. And, although it's not funny, it's crazy that I even have to clarify that. We're in a constitutional republic and you have open communists. So crazy world we live in.
Yeah, his platform is a whole nother conversation for another show. But I think the number one thing I explain to people with communism is, do you really want to go down this road where we're waiting in line for bread? Do you want it to come to that? Is that the road you want to go down? I mean, how bad it's like, do you want to trade waiting in line for bread for a free college education and free healthcare? I mean, come on. Let's be real here.
I tell people I'm about making that bread, but not waiting in bread lines.
Amen to that. And I think that's a tremendously polarizing thing. I think that goes without saying. I think in many ways, Bernie is going to be the best thing that ever happened to the Republican Party in so many ways. But it's just, I can't believe the amount of people that don't see that or don't understand that. And I'm like, is that a road you really want to go down? Because it's a dangerous road and it's dark and lonely. Don't do it. So I appreciate you taking the time. If somebody wants to reach out to you, is the best way through the website? Yeah,
best way is through the website. And then also too, even if you can't, personally donate finances, we always ask people to share the information that I'm putting out, especially with the campaign, whether it's on social media or via emails. And then also too, we can't accept donations of like stickers, for example. We just ask that you fill out a donation form. It's called an in-kind form. So if you're willing to do that, we're more than happy to take it. But you can always reach out to us directly at votesonpaulina.com.
And as you go forward and as this progresses, and I know it's going to gain a ton of steam, I'm going to look forward to seeing you at different events and things and speaking out. What's some of the next couple of events you'll be at? Are they all on the website, or is there one you want to announce?
So what we do is we actually, for safety reasons, will email directly to people that are in district, and then also too that are on our email list. So you can sign up there. But one of the biggest ones we're going to be coordinating is, again, Blexit. That will be in May, and that's going to basically just be some outreach stuff for Blexit and then also the community. But we're also going to be having a big event right before the primary, so I can't say too much more about that. My primary is in August, but you'll make sure that you want to be there. You won't want to miss it. We're going to have a special guest, and I think everyone will be very excited about that. So,
well, I think that's amazing. I think you're going to crush it. I appreciate you taking the time. I know you're busy, and we had a hard stop at 45. I want to thank everyone in the studio. I want to thank everyone for taking the time. I want to thank you particularly, Anna Paulina.
Thank you.
Yeah, and make sure everyone checks out our website. I can't, express enough. I rarely do this, but I'm on your website, and anybody who's pro reciprocity, who's pro this, I'm going to make a small donation myself just to show my support.
Thank you.
And I know I'm not even in the district. And to everybody listening, listen, this isn't a pun. She didn't put me up to it. It's not going to be much. She's not going to be excited when she sees it. Believe me. But I believe in this. I believe in people pursuing that mission. And I think you're the beginning of more to come. And I want to thank everyone. I want to thank everyone at kvar.com. I want to thank everybody who participated in pulling this together. A little shout out to Amy Robbins too, because she said, what a great person.
I love her.
Yeah, Amy's great. So I know you'll crush it in the district, and I can't, really thank you for taking the time on a Sunday to do this, and I appreciate you.
All right, perfect. Thank you so much, and we will be in touch soon, and I can't wait for everyone to kind of follow my journey, and hopefully we can take back the house.
Right on. We're out.
All right, thanks. Bye.